Horton and the Kwuggerbug by Dr. Seuss.
Horton and the Kwuggerbug. It happened last May on a very nice day. While the elephant Horton was walking, they say, just minding his business, just going his way, when a Kwuggerbug dropped from a tree with a plunk and landed on Horton the elephant's trunk. The Kwuggerbug leaned toward the elephant's ear.
Perhaps you are wondering,
He said,
why I'm here. Well, I've got a secret.
he whispered.
I know of a bezelnut tree where some bezel nuts grow.
Bezel nuts? Horton looked up with wide eyes. Bezel nuts? This was a happy surprise. For of all of the nuts in that jungle to eat, the nut of the bezel by far was most sweet. But why? Horton asked. Do you tell this to me?
Well, you see,
The bug answered.
my bezelnut tree is rather far off, and I'm not very strong. I'd get there much quicker if you came along. So I'll make you a deal that I think is quite fair. You furnish the legs and you carry me there. I'll furnish the brains, show the way to the tree. Then half of the nuts are for you, half for me.
A deal, Horton said with a smile on his face. Hold tight and we're off to your bezelnut place. Just steer me and show me the best road to take.
No road,
Laughed the Kwuggerbug.
we'll take the lake.
And he steered the big elephant down to the shore of a lake that was 30 miles long, maybe more. Oh, shivered Horton. Now, wait just a minute. I can't swim that lake. It has crocodiles in it. Just look at their terrible teeth, how they flash. They'll chew me right up into elephant hash. I think, Mr. Bug, that there surely must be a much safer way to your bezelnut tree.
Now,
Said the Kwuggerbug.
don't start to squeal. You promised you'd go, and a deal is a deal.
Horton thought. What he says is quite true. A deal is a deal. I must see the deal through. So bravely the elephant dived in that pond, and he swam for the shore far beyond, while crocodiles snapped and attempted to eat his tail and his ears and the soles of his feet. They nipped at his knees and they nabbed at his chin, and he thought as he fought that he never would win. But he swam and he swum and he held his trunk high, with the Kwuggerbug on it, quite safe and dry. A terrible fellow, that Kwuggerbug guy, just sat there and bossed him.
You hustle now, hustle. I furnish the brains, and you furnish the muscle.
So from 10 in the morning till 2:15, poor Horton fought on till he finally got through to the side of the lake where the bezel nuts grew. He crawled from the water, tired, battered, and wet. Now where, Horton asked, are those nuts that I get?
Oh,
Laughed the Kwuggerbug.
you're not there yet. Climb that.
Said the bug, pointing up in the sky at a terrible mountain 9,000 feet high. Climb that? Horton gulped. Not the way that I feel.
Tut, tut, said the bug. Now a deal is a deal. And don't start to argue. No ifs and no buts. You'll furnish the ride, and I'll furnish the nuts.
Sighed poor Horton. The climb, sighed poor Horton, will kill me, no doubt. But a deal is a deal, and I cannot back out. He drew a deep breath, and he threw back his shoulders and dragged his tired legs over rocks and big boulders. He stumbled and staggered uphill over stones that tattered his toenails and bruised all his bones, while the Kwuggerbug perched on his trunk all the time, and kept yelling,
Climb! You dumb elephant, climb!
He climbed. He grew dizzy. His ankles grew numb. But he climbed and he climbed and he clumb and he clumb. His hearing grew faint and his eyesight grew dim. But he clumb and he clumb and he clim and he clim from 2:15 until 4:45, till finally old Horton, more dead than alive, had carried that bug to the very tip-top. And then, only then, did the elephant stop, and he gasped to the bug as he sank to his knees. Now where are my bezel nuts, sir, if you please?
Right there,
said the bug. Horton looked. It was true. 'Twas the bezel nut tree where the bezel nuts grew. But, Bug, Horton moaned, we're here and they're there, way out on that peak, and between us is air. Now how can I get through that space in between? I can't walk on air, if you see what I mean.
A deal is a deal, snapped the bug. I'm the boss. You stretch out your trunk and you put me across. Stretch, Horton, stretch,
yelled the bug. So he stretched. He stretched it 2 feet, but it still wouldn't touch.
Streech, Horton, streech,
yelled the bug. So he streeched. It hurt him real badly, but finally it reached.
At last,
sang the Kwuggerbug, chuckling with glee. And he slid down the trunk to his bezel nut tree. And he picked all those nuts and he stacked a big mound of luscious, sweet bezel nuts high on the ground. But hey, called the elephant, you, over there! Half of that mound, don't forget, is my share.
Not yet,
said the bug.
All the nuts have been stacked, but before we can share, they have got to be cracked.
So he cracked all the nuts. Then he said with a laugh,
A deal is a deal, and I'm giving you half. 1/2 of each nut, as you know, is the meat, and that is the half I am keeping to eat. But half of each nut, as you know very well, is the half of the nut that is known as the shell. The shells are for you,
laughed the bug, and he rose and he stuffed all the shucks up the elephant's nose. Now what would you do if he did that to you? With shucks up your nostrils, how dreadful you'd feel. But you couldn't complain, 'cause a deal is a deal. You'd have to act terribly nice and do right, so you'd say in a voice that was very polite, Thanks, Mr. Kwuggerbug. Thank you for these, but they tickle my nose, so look out! I shall sneeze. And you'd sneeze, and you'd sneeze, and you'd sniz, and you'd sniz, and blow all the shucks from your trunk with a whiz, just the way Horton did. 'Cause they blew out of his, and they blasted that Kwuggerbug so far away that he sailed through the air for the whole month of May, and didn't come down till the 15th of June, all tattered and torn in the late afternoon at a place that's so far, now he never can go, to his bezel nut tree where his bezel nuts grow. Marco comes late. Young man, said Miss Block, it's 11 o'clock. This school begins promptly at 8:45. Why, this is a terrible time to arrive. What's wrong with you, boy? Is your head made of wood? Why didn't you come just as fast as you could? What is your excuse? It had better be good. Marco looked at the clock. Then he looked at Miss Block. Excuse? Marco stuttered. Well, you see, well, it's like this. Something happened to me. This morning, Miss Block, when I left home for school, I hurried off early, according to rule. I said when I started at 8:15, I must not, I will not, I shall not be late. I'll be the first pupil to be in my seat. Then, bang! Something happened on Mulberry Street. I heard a strange peep, and I took a quick look. And you know what I saw with the look that I took? A bird laid an egg on my arithmetic book. I couldn't believe it, Miss Block, but it's true. I stopped and I didn't quite know what to do. I didn't dare run and I didn't dare walk. I didn't dare yell and I didn't dare talk. I didn't dare sneeze and I didn't dare cough. Because if I did, I would knock the egg off. So I stood there, stock still, and it worried me pink. Then my feet got quite tired, and I sat down to think. And while I was thinking down there on the ground, I saw something move, and I heard a loud sound of a worm who was having a fight with his wife. The most terrible fight that I've heard in my life. The worm, he was yelling, "That boy should not wait. He must not, he dare not, he shall not be late. That boy ought to smash that egg off of his head." Then the wife of the worm shouted back, and she said, "To break that dear egg would be terribly cruel. An egg's more important than going to school. That egg is that mother bird's pride and her joy. If he smashes that egg, he's the world's meanest boy." And while the worms argued about what I should do, a couple big cats started arguing too. "You listen to me," I heard one of them say. "If this boy doesn't go on to school right away, Miss Block will be frightfully, horribly mad. If the boy gets there late, she will punish the lad." Then the other cat snapped, "I don't care if she does. This boy must not move." So I stayed where I was, with the egg on my head and my heart full of fears, and the shouting of cats and of worms in my ears. Then, while I lay wondering when all this would stop, the egg on my book burst apart with a pop, and out of the pieces of red and white shell jumped a strange brand new bird, and he said with a yell, "I thank you, young fellow, you've been simply great. But now that I'm hatched, you no longer need wait. I'm sorry I kept you till 11 o'clock. It's really my fault. You tell that to Miss Block. I wish you good luck, and I bid you good day." That's what the bird said. Then he fluttered away. And then I got here just as fast as I could. And that's my excuse, and I think it's quite good. Miss Block didn't speak for a moment or two. Her eyes looked at Marco and looked him clean through. Then she smiled. "That's a very good tale, if it's true. Did all of those things really happen to you?" Well," answered Marco with sort of a squirm. "Not quite all, I guess, but I did see a worm." How Officer Pat Saved the Whole Town. The job of an officer of the police is watching for trouble and keeping the peace. He has to be sharp and he has to be smart and try to stop trouble before it can start. And that's why one morning, while out on his beat on the corner of Chestnut and Mulberry Street, he got sort of worried, did Officer Pat, when his very keen eyes spied a very small gnat going buzz round the head of old Thomas the cat. "Aha!" murmured Pat. "I see trouble in that. If that gnat bites that cat, and he might very well, that cat will wake up and he'll let out a yell. That's only small trouble, I know it. But, brother, one small bit of trouble will lead to another. The trouble with trouble is, trouble will spread. The yowl of that cat will wake Tom, Tim, and Ted. Those terrible triplets of Mrs. McGowan. Then they'll yowl a yowl that'll wake this whole town. When trouble gets started, it always starts more. Those kids with their racket and ruckus and roar will frighten the birds, and the birds will come flapping down Mulberry Street with a yipping and yapping. Once trouble gets going, it spreads just like fire. Those birds will come screaming toward Mr. McGuire, the fish market man, and he'll get such a scare, he'll toss that big codfish up high in the air. That's the trouble with trouble. It grows and it grows. That fish in the air will land smack on the nose of that horse over there that belongs to Bill Hart. the horse will start kicking Hart's wagon apart. And pumpkins will bounce on the head of Jake Warner, who's fixing that hydrant down there on the corner. And once all those pumpkins start falling on Jake, he'll fall on his wrench and the hydrant will break. There's no stopping trouble once trouble gets going. When hydrants get broken, the water starts flowing. The water will gush right on Mrs. Manila. She'll think that it's rain and put up her umbrella, and that'll knock young Bobby Burke off his bike. He'll fall on the ladder of House Painter Mike, and House Painter Mike, when he tumbles, will spill a bucket of paint on the head of Don Dill. Oh, once it gets started, there's no stopping trouble. That splashing of paint will upset Mrs. Hubble. She'll drop all her dishes. They'll smash on the ground and startle her dog, and the poor frightened hound will jump in the horn of old horn tooter Fritz. And Fritz will fall backward and scare driver Schmitz on his dynamite truck, almost out of his wits. And that dynamite truck, with its big load of blitz, will race toward that tree, and oh boy, when it hits, the whole of this town will be blown to small bits. But, lucky for us, down on Mulberry Street, good Officer Pat was awake on his beat. And quick, the brave officer swung his big bat on the troublesome head of that troublesome gnat, and kept him from biting old Thomas the cat, and stopped all the trouble before it began. He saved the whole town. What a very smart man. The Hoobub and the Grinch. Hoobub was lying outdoors in the sun, the wonderful, wonderful warm summer sun. There's nothing, he said, quite as good as the sun. Then up walked a Grinch with a piece of green string. How much? Asked the Grinch. Will you pay for this thing? You sure ought to have it. You'll find it great fun. And it's worth a lot more than that old-fashioned sun. Huh? Asked the Hoobub. Sounds silly to me. Worth more than the sun? Why, that surely can't be. But it is, grinned the Grinch. Let me give you the reasons. The sun's only good in a couple short seasons. For you'll have to admit that in winter and fall, the sun is quite weak. It is not strong at all. But this wonderful piece of green string I have here is strong, my good friend, every month of the year. Even so, said the Hoobub, I still sort of doubt. But you know, yapped the Grinch, and he started to shout that sometimes the sun doesn't even come out. But this marvelous piece of green string, I declare, can come out of your pocket if you keep it there, anytime, day or night, any place, anywhere. Said the Hoobub. That would be quite handy. This piece of green string, yelled the Grinch, is a dandy. That sun, let me tell you, is dangerous stuff. It can freckle your face. It can make your skin rough. When the sun gets too hot, it can broil you like fat. But this piece of green string, sir, will never do that. This piece of green string is colossal, immense, and to you, well, I'll sell it for 98 cents. And the Hoobub, he bought. And I'm sorry to say that Grinches sell Hoobubs such things every day. We hope you have enjoyed this